Okay, I am so excited to film this video. I'm going to be talking all about my experience getting a pixie cut and how I dealt with the big change in the growing out periods, because when I wanted to get a pixie cut, I was watching all of the YouTube videos I could find of people who have done it, and I just couldn't get enough of hearing people talk about their own experience. So I'm going to be going very in-depth and sharing everything that I learned throughout the process, both superficial, like how I styled it, how the growing out phase went, but also like a few deeper things that I learned about myself during this experience. So this is how I would summarize my whole pixie experience. I'm so glad I did it. I'm so proud of myself for doing it. I don't regret it in the slightest. Will I do it again? No. And I will make this disclaimer, I'm just talking about my experience. Any opinion that I have is just about me and my own experience, so take all of this with a grain of salt. So as a bit of background, I've always loved having an element of like juxtaposition in my style. I've always loved mixing like femininity and androgyny and some masculinity in my style. And I've always loved just having some element of like uniqueness in my style. I've never loved looking super trendy or super in. I feel like I get my confidence from like having an element that's a bit different or a bit unique to what everyone else is doing. I know that's like such pick me energy, but that's just the truth of how I feel. And I've always loved playing around with my hair. Like I've been dyeing my hair different colors since I was like 14 maybe. I've had super blonde hair, I've had super dark hair, I've had red hair, I've had super long hair, I've had short hair, I've had medium length hair, I've had a perm at one point. It's just always been something I've loved playing with. And when I was like 18 or 19, I was watching The Bachelor. And I don't know how many of you watched Ari's season of The Bachelor, but when I saw Becca Martinez come out of the limo with her pixie cut, I was like, oh my god, she's the coolest person on earth. Like, that looks amazing. I so wish I could pull that off. But I just didn't think I could because I have such a round face and she had like super dainty features, and I thought that that's like what made her pixie look so good. So I never actually considered doing it. And then about 7 months ago, I cut a bob, which is the shortest I had gone since I was in like 5th grade maybe. And it was just laying super blunt. Like it looked like a mushroom because I have kind of a lot of hair. So my bob was like, it was very thick on the sides. So, but I had just paid so much money to get this done. So I went to a cheaper salon to have them like take some weight out of the bottoms, and they completely botched it. Like it was a horrible haircut. So at that point, I kind of revisited my pixie fantasy and thought about cutting it all off to solve the problem. And I kind of talked to my friends about it to like feel it out. I was like, oh, I've always wanted to get a pixie. Maybe this is a sign that I should do it, but I don't think I could pull it off. And my friend Ellie was like, I'm over that. I feel like anyone can pull anything off. Like you just have to do it. If you do it, you can pull it off. It was almost like I was worried that if I did it, people were gonna be like, that's so random, like that's so not her. But in reality, you tell people who you are. You dictate what your style is. You're in charge of deciding what's you. So I kind of bit the bullet and I made my 3rd hair appointment of that month to get my pixie. So I showed up to the appointment and I told them I wanted to get a pixie, and I was like, my bob is so botched right now, like just cut it all off. And they were kind of like, okay, chill, we can just do a French bob, like you wouldn't actually have to cut that much off to fix this. But I was like, no, do it. I want to do it before I change my mind. Like if I don't do it now, when will I ever do it? Like I just want to do it. So for weeks leading up to the appointment, I had a whole Pinterest board and was pinning so many pixies because I didn't want to risk just going into the salon and asking for a pixie and getting something that I really didn't want. Like I did not want it to end up looking like kind of punk, and I really didn't want it to look like a Karen haircut. Like there were a lot of pictures in my head of what it could look like if it went wrong, and I just did not want to risk it. So I spent so much time on Pinterest making my perfect Pinterest board of pixies that I liked. I was pinning more kind of like romantic styles, but I didn't realize that even all of those pixies I was pinning varied a lot from each other. So when I got to my appointment and I showed him my Pinterest board, he was kind of like, okay, so which one do you want? And we kind of had to like figure it out together at the appointment, which did not go well for me because I'm such a people pleaser. So anytime he was like, well, what if we do this? Or what if we go shorter here? Or what if we do this? Maybe we should do this. I was always just like, sounds good. Because I'm such a people pleaser and I get so scared to be like, no, I don't really want that. Like, which is so stupid. That's my issue, but that's how it went. So it ended up being much shorter and darker than I wanted. And he kind of insisted on leaving the bottom back of it like square, like the hairline at the back. He left it square because he thought that it was more feminine, but to me, because it was so short and dark, the back of it being square like kind of did make it look like punk-ish in my opinion, and I just didn't like it. So as soon as I got home, I had my friend Ellie like round out the corners of it here. There are a million ways to cut a pixie and you should be sure what you want. Literally just find one photo of someone with a pixie that you love that has the same hair type as you and show your hairdresser that one photo so that you're sure that that's exactly what you get. So for the first week or two of my pixie, I definitely had a bit of an identity crisis. I'd kind of look at myself in the mirror and be like, like, who is this? What did I do? And looking at pictures of my old long hair definitely didn't help with that. I was kind of going down a path of feeling like I ruined my appearance a little bit, and I was kind of spiraling in the beginning. But then I realized this is probably a great thing. Not great in that I suddenly loved my pixie, but great in that I felt like I kind of needed to separate myself from conventional attractiveness and separate my appearance from my identity a little bit. So instead of trying to make myself love my pixie and convince myself that I looked so good, I kind of decided to just accept that that's how it was and just live. I've definitely been someone who in my teen years and early adulthood has paid a lot of attention to my appearance, and I don't even mean that purely in a bad way. Like, yes, I struggled with insecurities, but I also had so much fun like playing with my style and my appearance. But at this point in my life, it felt good to just liberate myself and take a break from that. So instead of trying to convince myself that I looked so hot with this new haircut, I kind of decided to just let it go and neutralize what I thought of it. This is funny because I was literally just saying that Becca Martinez is who made me want to get a pixie in the first place, but talking about this made me think of something that she was talking about on her Instagram story just the other day. She was talking about the idea of ugly and the idea of like, instead of always having to replace the word ugly with beautiful and saying that nothing is ever ugly, that's not real, everything's beautiful, instead of demonizing the word ugly, can't we just decide that you may feel ugly sometimes, but that it just doesn't matter and that attractiveness is just not that important and your appearance just like isn't the most interesting thing about you? So I guess in hindsight, I kind of decided on a similar mindset for myself. It felt more liberating to me to just say, this is how it is. Maybe I don't love it, but it just doesn't matter. I'm just gonna live, versus trying to convince myself that I thought I looked amazing. And it kind of made me internally feel like myself in a way that I hadn't felt in a long time. Like, since I wasn't paying much attention to my looks anymore in a positive or negative way, it kind of made me feel like how I've always felt in settings where I didn't have to care about how I looked. Like growing up when I was just with my family or at the lake with my cousins, I paid way less attention to how I looked than I did in other settings. And like my favorite memories in life are when I was at the lake, hadn't taken a real shower in a few days, my hair was tied up in a bun, like sitting on top of my head, but I was having the time of my life with the people I loved, and my physical appearance just was not a factor in how I was living or how I was viewing myself at all. So that's kind of how I got through the first few weeks of my pixie. Anytime I would start to tell myself, oh, I look awful, or oh, I would just be like, nope, we're not doing that. We're not going there. And the fact that I started to feel insecure further proved to me that this was going to be a necessary chapter in my life. Like, I was fully aware in the moment that this was a lesson I needed to learn. After a few weeks, I did actually start to really like it from time to time. I kind of felt like a badass. I felt really cool. And especially living in the town that I live in, I feel like in Pittsburgh where I grew up, if I was walking around the streets with a pixie, like nobody would bat an eye. But here in this little Australian beach town, it's just not the norm. And since I've always liked having something unique about my style, this was an aspect that I actually really love. However, the times that I felt the most excited about my hair were admittedly the times when I already looked good, when I was tan and had makeup on and liked my outfit. Whereas I still struggled with the appearance of it when I was just at home in my sweats with no makeup on. So for most of my PIXIE experience, even up until now, having the PIXIE was a confidence booster when I already felt really good, but a confidence ruiner when I didn't. But like I said before, noticing how much I was taking note of my appearance and kind of judging it was definitely a necessary thing I needed to be confronted by. Okay, in terms of styling, short hair can be both easier and harder. When I had long hair, I never really styled it every day. I would kind of just wake up and comb it or let it air dry and it was fine. But with my PIXIE, I couldn't even lay on the couch or lounge in bed for 20 minutes without having to completely wet it and redo it when I got up. But that being said, doing my hair really just consisted of wetting it and pushing it down where I wanted it to dry, or tying a bandana around it to flatten it a bit before letting it air dry. So the styling itself is much easier than styling long hair, but the very fact that I had to style it every day was more than I was doing with my long hair. Okay, this may seem totally obvious, but I just want to point it out. If you're gonna get a PIXIE, you have to be okay with your hair being every single length in between a PIXIE and what you might grow it out to in the future. So if you cut a PIXIE and then decide you want to have long hair again, you're gonna have to go through a longer PIXIE, a shag, a bob, shoulder length haircut, medium haircut, long hair, everything in between. So if you think you'd look good with a PIXIE but have never considered getting a bob, that's obviously something you should think about. The PIXIE comes with all of the lengths in between having a PIXIE and where you might grow it out to. But that being said, I think there's one thing I was nervous about that I definitely didn't need to be. I feel like when I was watching videos of people talk about the PIXIE, or when I would run into people who had shaved their head and grown out their hair since, everyone always talked about the mullet phase, and everyone was like, watch out for the mullet phase, like there's no avoiding the mullet phase. But as someone who has almost made it to the bob phase, I can say that the mullet phase was actually very easy to avoid. I feel like people end up with a mullet because they just want to grow it out as quickly as possible and they're so scared of cutting it ever. But the only thing you have to do to avoid a mullet is just trim the back bottom of it every month or so to give the rest of your hair time to catch up with it. Also, there's nothing wrong with rocking a mullet. I just didn't think I would look good with it. The other thing I want to talk about is the passage of time. I remember before getting my PIXIE hearing that hair grows half an inch every month, and I did some calculating and I was like, okay, so I'll really only have a short PIXIE for like 5 months. That's no big deal if I don't like it. And while that did end up being true, I really only had a short PIXIE for about 5 months. Those 5 months felt very long in the moment. I did learn to love it sometimes, but there were definitely moments where I was getting really frustrated by how long it felt like it was taking to grow. But now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm kind of like, that was really no big deal. Like that didn't take that long. Along the same lines of that, I thought that having a PIXIE was going to make me realize how fast hair grows, but it actually did the opposite. Starting fresh made me have such an appreciation for the hair that was growing back because I was seeing how long of a process it actually is. And the other great thing about starting fresh is that the hair that's growing back now is natural virgin hair, like super, super soft and healthy. And like I said, my hair has been so many colors over the years, so it was getting really damaged. So it's been really nice to have healthy hair, but also to see what my natural hair even looks like, because I honestly didn't know what my natural hair color was anymore until I started growing it out. So in my opinion, literally nothing bad can come of cutting a PIXIE. The only possible negative is an appearance-based insecurity, but I think if that surfaces, then it's something that needed to be dealt with anyway. And I know I've been talking this whole time as if I hated my PIXIE and it was just something I had to get through, but I really did have so much fun with it, and it was something I had always wanted to do. And I'm really proud of myself for kind of taking a break of conventional beauty standards and just exploring something that I had always felt drawn to try. So I am really pro PIXIE. And remember, you decide who you are. You tell others who you are. There is nothing that's off limits for you. There's nothing that's just not you. As soon as you have it, it is you. Which brings us full circle to my last lesson. Anyone can pull off anything. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this gave you some inspiration and gave you the courage you might need to go ahead and make that big change with your hair. Big changes are scary, but I honestly have no regrets, and it's really taught me more than I thought it could have. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. My channel is still very new and small, so anything helps. And hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. Bye!